CRT is like a really, really academic subject. I was just curious how much prep you did for this conversation or this discussion.
Prep, like, as in I have script or notes right in front of me?
Yeah, yeah. Or like, did you read a
None.
book or did you take a class on this in college?
I did take a class that did incorporate, this was last year, spring, incorporated sorry, was it last year spring? Yes, it was last no, it was sorry, it was last year fall. I took one last year fall, that incorporated, critical race theory into it. It was race, gender, and ethnic politics, obviously,
Okay.
US politics. Pretty interesting class. Got to learn a lot of new things. Got to learn more about feminism and got to learn more about some of the other, like ethnic civil rights movements that happened around the same time as the African American civil rights movement was going on. I think my favorite one is probably the Chicano and the American Indian movement.
Right, right.
And it's also
Um,
pretty interesting looking at the model minority myth, which is something I'd never um, heard about prior to taking that class. Because I think it's actually pretty decently pervasive
yeah, I think it's
in
a really
registration
interesting.
arguments.
Yeah, I'd love to learn more about model minorities. Because uh, every like Asian person I've spoken to, I remember I had an Asian roommate, and she was always like, "I hate that people think I'm good at math. I don't know anything about math." And I don't know. It was just a really interesting situation. Anyways, I'm gonna jump out of here for someone with some more critical questions of critical race theory or whatever. I just wanted to know how prep went for this. That's all.
All right, no problem. All right, so we have Jesus Christ, we got 7 people listening. Let's see who's in here now. All right, Rad is in, and so is Jiva. All right, good stuff, good stuff. Tough Love has been sitting here, and I'm assuming he came in here to like actually join in rather than just listen. I'll why don't I prop you up onto stage if you'd like to, if you want to request that Tough Love, or I wait, never mind, I can invite you. There we go. First time using the stage feature. Cocolicious, can you define CRT for us? Yeah, sure. So this is where it starts getting into sort of contentious grounds already. When I was discussing it yesterday with I think uh with Chimki, or it might have been Radheim, one or the other. When I was discussing the proposition yesterday with someone, or last night, whatever. Uh, I brought up the fact that I wanted to talk about this because it's blown up very recently, especially among conservative media, but not necessarily just conservative media. Sort of mainstream liberal media has picked it up as well. Uh, Jiva dropped out and M's back in. Oh, Jiva's back. All right. So what you'll often see is you'll have Fox News make some ridiculous goddamn claim like CRT is about making white people feel guilty for being white. Um, I'll give you just 1 second, actually. Like Fox News will say like this is what critical race theory is. This image that's in debate chat. Have a laugh at it. Um, it's just damn. All of a sudden, I love CRT. uh, no, jokes aside, but Fox like conservative media in general. Well, I haven't even gotten around to the definition of it yet. Conservative media in general will go, well, it's all this and that and that and that, and then you'll get a response in the more liberal media, and they'll say, "Oh no, it's just a lens of analyzing social phenomena through the lens of race." Um, and that is only partly accurate. Now, the definition that you'll find when you look this up on more on sources that actually know what the hell they're talking about, even on the Wikipedia page, is that um it was a movement. For one thing, it was an academic activist movement that started out of Harvard to analyze how racism impacted laws and legal structures in the United States. However, it's also evolved into an analytical perspective of the social sciences, particularly. Um, when Uguay is up here, he's talking about it has implications for math. Not that I'm aware of, unless it's one of those weird people unless it's one of those things where it's like, and I've heard this argument before, and I think these people are weird as myself, where people say, "Oh, well, mathematics is colonialism" or some shit like that. Math is right. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm CRT doesn't, as far as I'm aware, doesn't say anything in that regard. It's strictly a social science perspective, and and more so a legal scholar, a legal academic perspective and movement within academia. So that's what CRT is. That's what critical race theory is. Now, making coffee and be ready. Good stuff, Rade. You take your time. You don't have to. Well, we got plenty. I want to run this for at least like an hour and a half, maybe. Um, yeah, Aviate says, I think it's important to state that it originated as an offshoot of critical legal theory. Uh, yeah, it's an offshoot of critical theory in general, which is a Marxist analytical lens, just through the uh lens of class rather than. Oh, what's Aviate going on about now? Yeah, okay, so here's the thing. Just because it's Marxist derived does not make it Marxist itself. Many of the academics that focus on critical race theory are not Marxists, as far as I'm aware. There are some who are, some who aren't. Not everything derived or influenced by Marx is Marxist. Just want to point that out there. Anyway, Time for me to stop shit posting with Aviate. Okay, so let me sorry, Coco, let me get to your question earlier. Um, so educate me, why is CRT important to include in our regular discourse? God damn it, Aviate, stop shit posting. Yeah, why is CRT important to include in our regular discourse? Quite frankly, it um in our regular discourse, it isn't. It wasn't relevant uh up until Fox News decided it was, because it's a scary sounding name that uh got headlines going, it gets views on cable, and it gets clicks on the internet. It is an academic product. Sorry, a product. It's a product of academia, not of the average person. So this whole thing started kicking up sort of last year. Why should we not be scared of it? What does it add to the conversation? Well, I'd say it adds a lot to the conversation. It's just not relevant. It's just not necessary for the average person. There's nothing in it to be scared of. It's tough love doesn't have his hand. I thought it was because I invited. I thought I Oh, my bad. Ah, okay, no problem. Yeah, there's nothing to be scared of. It's simply a lens of analyzing particular topics through the lens of race, which would be relevant for and that part of the definition is relevant for me as a historian. So when we want to say, let's say, like I took a course on civil rights history through film this year. One of the films we watched was about I can't remember what it's called, but it has John Travolta and he's a lawyer. And he's trying to represent a town who a lot of people have died from cancer, and the townspeople blame chemical companies that have dumped shit into their water supply. Um, and then the professor of that class would want you to relate that to a reading he assigned for the film as well, talking about uh how pollution can more so impact a civil action. Yes, that is it. Thanks, Jiva. Yeah, that's the movie. In case you're wondering, it's not that great, to be quite honest. But feel free to make your own decision on that. Uh, but the professor for that class wanted to relate the film and any critique he had of it to a reading he assigned, talking about how pollution affected African American communities. Because you have places in like fucking Louisiana called Cancer Valley, where it's the population is small, but like 100% black. The rates of cancer. Eh? Yeah, sorry, Uruguay. It really isn't. The rate of cancer that they have is incredibly high, and the rate of pollution the concentration of pollution in that area is also incredibly high, much higher than the typical average of the state or of the U.S. And you know, in a critical race theory term, you might say that's environmental racism, where the negative impacts of the environment and of pollution impact disproportionately people of color, in this case specifically African Americans. So that's an example of where you might use critical race theory to analyze a particular topic is how do environmental changes disproportionately impact people of color, minorities, so on and so forth. Just to answer your question, Cocalicious, like in terms of what does it add to the conversation, that's what it adds to the conversation. As for and that's sort of why should we not be scared of it? It's nothing to be scared of. It's study of which group of people gets fucked the most. Uh, that's critical theory in general, I'd say. What do I use CRT for? Like I said, it's analyzing particular social phenomenon. Sorry, analyzing particular social phenomenon through the lens of race. Now, critical race theory has specifically been used for African American through the lens of African Americans. Some might say yes. I even agree with some what's the word I'm looking for here? With some assertions of capitalism being racist. I don't agree with all of them. But I think that yeah, see, like I don't think capitalism is inherently racist, but I think racism I think if a society is racist, then that will lead to the marketplace of capitalism within that country to being racist. Like, do you think during the 60s, like if there was a white business next to a black business, that the black business would get like better, would get more service than the other one? Probably not. What do you? So we got two questions here. What do you think of people saying that they are using CRT when saying things like science is racist? Okay, so you touched on like math being racist, and like other than maybe like some weird applications of math, like with the fucking bell curve and what's the statistical analysis that they used in the bell curve again? I don't think that was it. There's a name for it. I can't remember what the term is now. Uh, other than just like random applications of things to particular topics, uh, I don't think like math is a racist subject. Now, science being racist is a different thing because it kind of was for a long time. Yeah, a bell. I'm not specifically talking about a bell curve in general. I'm talking about the bell curve, the book, the one, the one supported by fucking the ones that they source, not fucking the Nazi goddamn funding organization, the Pioneer Fund. But if you want to say science is racist, now that's a different topic because for one thing, for a long time, a lot of science was racist, particularly in biology, particularly where it it had to do with differences between race sciences essentially. uh, and even now to this day, myths regarding there are a lot of myths that are still surrounding the information in regard to uh, African American physical health in medicine. It's stuff that still gets published in modern so it's stuff that gets published in modern medical books or and is still believed by a decent amount of doctors, and it's kind of scary that a, a lot of people still think these things. Is that a fault of science or people propagating their ideology? It's not even an ideology thing at this point. He sorry, it's not an ideology thing. It's just misinformation that has just passed on, and it's just racist information. Like people saying that oh, black people can't. Like here's one of the most pervasive ones I can think of. Black people feel less pain than white people. This is a myth from fucking slave times that they had a thicker skin, like literally thicker skin, and so they could handle the pains of physical labor and of punishment, like getting whipped and shit, without feeling much pain in general. No, yeah, sorry, I didn't get to that, Jiva, but it's discussion has been wild. Yeah, yeah, Coco, but yeah, yeah, Coco, it's insane that anyone thinks this. Unfortunately, it's a pervasive belief in medical field. What was their evidence on that theory? I don't know. It was slave masters thinking that their slaves didn't feel pain. They didn't need evidence. They didn't need evidence. They had fucking what was that? What's that shit where you get the calipers out and you measure their skulls? What was that shit called again? Phrenology. They had phrenology for fucking like centuries. They didn't have evidence for it. Phrenology just said, "Yo, yeah, this is definitely true. White people have a bump in their skull that makes them smarter." This is that, and it's just like that one guy was dropped in his head as baby. That's where the bump came from. No, I mean, yeah, it's pseudoscience and it's bullshit, but it got propagated for over a century, if not maybe like a century or two, as being actual science. Anyway, sorry, Jiva, I've been putting off your question. Uh, what was it? What do you think of the color blindness approach? I think that could be better, i.e., just stop talking about race. Color blindness approach. Even Dr. King wasn't fucking. Dr. King hated the idea of color blindness, and so did people like Malcolm X as well. Uh, because liberal color blindness seems to be a way of just ignoring racism rather than addressing it. Like color blindness is seems to be a way of ignoring racism rather than addressing it, rather than getting to a point of racial abolition, which is what people like MLK, Dr. King were working for. Tropical CRT stands for uh, critical race theory. So I mean, I hope that answers your question, Jiva. It's not good to just like flat out just stop talking about race. Like everyone brings up that one time Morgan Freeman said that in like a 60 Minutes interview or some shit. He hates that interview now, and he fucking regrets saying that. Thanks. All right, so Coco, let's see. And so in light of CRT, how should we go about addressing new policies? I'm trying to talk about whether or not CRT should be taught. Okay, no problem. Drop. Uh, how should we go about addressing new policies? Could you be more specific? That's to Coco. Like reparations and things of that nature, reparations is one of the most it's oh man, it's such like a hot topic. It's a hot button topic, whatever the saying is. Uh, close the glap gap in clear inequality. Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, man, reparations. I think reparations for African Americans are deserved, not just for slavery. I think everything past slavery as well. But I want your opinion, by the way. All the hot takes. Well, how do we close the gap in clear inequality? I think reparations is the way to that, but the what the big debate is the because for people who in African American studies who take reparations seriously, the debate over reparations isn't whether or not they should have it. They agree that reparations is deserved. What they don't agree on is what that is and what it should look like. You have people who say, well, cash payments, right? Most serious scholars on on reparations don't think uh, are monetary reparations actually helpful. Probably, right? I'm not sure myself. It takes a bit more than just money to use a Malcolm X saying to heal the wound. Um, but sorry, where was I going? Most people who study reparations don't agree with the just give people money. It'd be prohibitively expensive. You'd have to decide who is deserving of money and who isn't, so on and so forth. The amount of might potentially end up creating racial animus between whites and blacks. So I don't know in that regard. Uh, but is a form of reparations in some way deserved? Yeah, absolutely. What form will that take? I do not know. Is that the way to clear inequality? Yeah, probably. I don't know. Did I answer your question, Coco? I think I went a bit off the beaten path there. Kind of advocate for what? Well, I didn't say that they're the most advantageous. Um, I think I think like cash settlements would be like pretty decent. Like probably one of the best ways to get out there, but it couldn't be just cash alone. We couldn't just be paying. We couldn't be giving like black people only UBI, right? Uh, Especially in the United States, because the United States has a because the United States equality doctrine specifically says we can't use past racism to to account for modern justice or whatever. So that's unfortunately just like off the books. Um, But anyway, let me move on to other people, Coco, because I've been on your question for a bit now. So let me move on to other people. I know someone asked me a question not too long ago. Someone asked me about primary school. Oh, Radai. Yeah, Radai. Let's see. Whether or not CRT should be taught in primary school. No. CRT is too advanced for primary school. That's like saying, should we talk about fucking economics, in kindergarten? The answer is no. Um, so Brock, so so Brock just asked a question. I guess this is being recorded, right? Oogway, is this being recorded? Or Stone? One of you guys listening in?
Yeah, it's being recorded.
Okay, perfect. I'll also address Brock verbally then. Yeah, so Brock just asked the question: is CRT applicable to a global level? It can be. It's a matter of adopt. It's a matter because, like I said, no, Jiva is being recorded. Yeah, so it's a matter of, like I said earlier, CRT is an American legal theory, but you can. There's no reason why you can't adapt that to other countries. You can't. There's no reason why you couldn't adapt it to the UK, to Ireland, to Germany, uh, even within the US, because like I was saying earlier, CRT is sort of dominated by the national conversation regarding African Americans rather than other ethnic groups. So, like within the Native American, within the American Indian society, there is a movement to establish American Indian or critical race theory or Native American critical race theory. So it's just a matter of adaptation of a theory. Anyway, but that's just to get to Brock's question. If he had asked, I don't know if he was being serious when he asked this. Will learning about it make us all more depressed? Should it be mandatory learning at any point? Is Avian shitposting there, or is that a serious question? I can't tell. Uh, I mean, either way, well, learning about it. The CRT account for Vikings. I don't. Hold on. Let me get to this question first. Will learning about it make us all more depressed? Depends what you're talking about. It can be. History is fucking depressing for me. I should mention this. I'm a historian and I work on. I'm going to be going into education at some point in the future. I'm working on my certification right now. Or well, coming semesters, I will be. And then finally out of school, yay. Um, but I mean, like as someone who's in history, yeah, history's fucking depressing, especially because I specialize in African American history and slavery in the Caribbean. Learning fucking learning about the Tulsa massacre is fucking shit show. I read slave accounts. It wasn't a shit post. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've read accounts from slaves describing their treatment. Like, it's that shit can be depressing. It really just matters what the topic is. It doesn't have to be. It depends on how how sort of thick skinned you are to that sort of stuff. But I mean, yeah, should it be mandatory learning at any point? If you're taking a course where it would be applicable to some degree, then maybe it'll be mandatory to learn it in that course. But other than that, I don't really know. I know at Harvard there are like actual critical race theory courses, probably in other universities as well. It That's just for the record, for those of you who have heard the discussion revolving around its use in classrooms, uh, in a public school setting, like K through 12 or years 1 through 11 for you UK folks, uh, it does not get used in public schools. I say this as someone who is a future educator in history. It is not used in regular, like, primary and secondary school classes. Should it though? Not necessarily. It's because it's again, it's an incredibly complicated topic. Um, like aspects of it can be, put into a classroom and for teaching stuff like history and whatnot. But I don't think critical race theory as a whole should be brought into for that sort of public school question, uh, public school setting. Uh, well, hold on. Sorry, I'll get to your question in just a second because I need let me answer. Oh wait, no, I answered ABS questions. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, Adam has a question. Would it make sense that the United States has more diseases and illnesses because different races are prone to different illnesses, and the United States is just one big melting pot? Oh, I didn't see Jiva's question. Yeah, I have no idea what plus VE discrimination is. Uh, make more sense that the United States has more illnesses and diseases and illnesses because different races are prone to different illnesses. I mean, maybe, but that's at that point you just kind of see that everywhere. The United States, in terms of yeah, I was just about to say, we're most like aviators say we're most sick because we have worse healthcare. Yeah, like Radis says, I think it can at least be taught in high school. Yeah, maybe it depends on where it's being taught and how. Like that, which is basically what I did say. I think in the higher years, the later years of uh the later years of secondary schooling, maybe like if you're doing like pre-college stuff or like eight or like advanced U.S. history, you know, go for it. Anyway, yeah, the United States has worse healthcare outcomes in general because the healthcare system is fucking trash. And oddly enough, this is something that if you ask someone who's a critical race theorist or who studies how the medical system affects African Americans in general, they would point out that the medical system in the United States has disproportionate outcomes for African Americans, and they're just awful. Like black women die more in birth, much at a much higher rate than white women do. And I mentioned before the thing about black people feel less pain than white people and so on and so forth. Like these things are still in there. It's so that so your question. That's more a factor of pervasive racism in medicine and a shitty healthcare system. Like just to put it simply. Jiva's asking about views on affirmative action. My view on affirmative action is the same as Dr. King's. Let me find the quote here so I don't fuck it up. Dr. King, affirmative. You know what? I know an easy way to find it. Base quote incoming. Fucking idiot. Goddamn idiot. Oh, you fucker. Okay, yeah. So yeah, so this is from Dr. King's book he wrote in 1964. Why I think it's Why We Can't Wait. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Em. Thanks for joining in. Yeah. So Dr. King at one point said, whenever this issue of compensatory or preferential treatment for the Negro is raised, some of our friends recoil in horror. The Negro should be granted equality, they agree, but he should ask for nothing more. On the surface, this appears reasonable, but it is not realistic. For it is obvious that if a man is entered at the starting line in a race 300 years after another man, the first would have to perform some impossible feat in order to catch up with his fellow runner. That's Dr. King in 1964. A lot of people, I've heard so many Republicans quote Dr. King, and then they say, "Oh, he would." Uh, and then they say, "Oh, he wouldn't support affirmative action and yada 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 yada." And it's just like, no, motherfucker, he did support affirmative action. He said so himself. So yeah, I mean, oh, it's Brock. Oh, it is Brock. Fuck, everyone run! Nothing, Brock. We've been talking shit about we've been talking shit about feminism this entire time. It's actually been a ruse. The children. This is actually a meeting to plan how we should kill J.K. Rowling. Uh, God. Okay, so yeah, Brock, you put in a question earlier. I did answer it. It'll be in the recording. You asked your question about CRT being applicable to the global level. Other than that, I just got done with my point on affirmative action that Jiva asked. He said, well, "What do I think about our views on affirmative discrimination, affirmative action?" I basically just quoted what Dr. King said on it because it's my position as well. Guess I missed everything important. Is CRT racist? No. But it discriminates based on skin color. But foot soldier, that's not what CRT is. But foot soldier, do you think this image encapsulates what CRT is? Okay, I'm just making sure. As for what is CRT, I've already answered this question. and I think I feel like I spent the first 15 minutes on it. I don't want to go back over it. If you want to know what CRT is, just yeah, I know, and that's fair enough. This session is being recorded, just so you know. I know you just got here. The session is being recorded. You can rewatch it. If you have questions for me, if you want to watch it and then have questions for me afterwards, feel free to message me afterwards, and I don't mind. Or ping me on here rather. Blowing up my DMs about it. Uh, or otherwise, just look up the damn Wikipedia page. Honestly, that'll do just as good, probably better than my description of it. Look, there we go. Stone. Thanks for coming in there. What question have already been asked? A ton actually. Uh, if you scroll up, you'll see. Uh, but we asked like Coco's been one asking pretty decent questions. Why is CRT important to include in regular discourse? I said, it wasn't because it's typically just a academic thing. He asked me, and he asked me, should we be scared of it? Is it relevant to current race relations discussion? And it's kind of relevant, but it doesn't need to be included in that conversation because it's so specifically academic. You end up with people misusing it. This kind of stuff like that. We talked about reparations a bit. What would you see as a misuse of CRT? Uh, like microaggressions being like people say microaggressions of CRT, and it's not microaggression. I understand microaggressions and I can understand what it is. It's just like smaller, really dumb things of sort of implicit uh racism rather than like overt, like shouting the N word, you know. Or people saying, "Oh, here's a perfect example." People saying fucking racial bias training is CRT. It is not. Robin DiAngelo is not CRT. Robin DiAngelo has nothing to do with CRT. Why do people conflate them? Because it's the popular thing to do. Because people like Robin DiAngelo exists. What does CRT solve? Is the goal to educate, or is it for law reform? Both. Robin DiAngelo's an idiot. Aviate, please. No. Don't. No. Aviate, stop. Oh, she's one of the authors I got. If CRT were a Teletubby. Aviate, please. Please don't. Robin DiAngelo is one of the authors that got really big last year. No, like she's one of the authors that got really big last year, and she's one of the people uh who's trying to take academic concepts of observation of race relations and put them into the broader uh, colloquial discussion, I guess you could say. It just doesn't work because when you're discussing like the academic use of the term whiteness, people freak the fuck out because they think that you're trying to like white genocide people or some shit. No, like anyone can join the audience, but um, I have to invite people, or one of the mods has to put someone up here. Uguay, Brock, or Shepherd, I guess. What do you think of the doctor that said she had fantasies of shooting white people? She's a fucking idiot. And that's paper in the psychology journal. I think I saw it the other day. Yeah, if you raise your hand, I click back on the stage thing every now and again just to check and make sure. Uh, sorry. Anyway, let me see. And as a psychology journal calling whiteness a mental disorder, it's probably wrong. I think whiteness is a I think whiteness as a political concept is just a way of discriminating against certain outside groups in favor of certain inside groups. Irish people weren't considered white for a while. Now they are typically. Slavic people, same thing. Yeah, Jewish people. Jewish people sometimes it's Jewish people depends. Yeah, depends on who you ask. Because sometimes Jewish people don't identify as white themselves, but sometimes they do. And personally, I think being a Jew doesn't exclude you from being white. Uh, but I mean, honestly, I can't tell you what whiteness is because whiteness doesn't have like this. It's just no fixed definition. Did you know Mexicans used to be white? Guess what? Then the Mexican War happened. The Mexican American War happened, and from then on, it was fuck Mexicans. They're not white anymore. What's the difference between white passing and white? It's actually a pretty good question. As someone who is white passing, I can. Is PTH in here? Someone tell PTH I've already answered that question. But what's the difference between white passing and white? White passing is someone whose ancestry like identifiably comes from someone who is like a person of color. As just to use a more simplified phrasing, versus and but it still can pass off as being a white person. So Aviat, I was telling you the other day about I was telling you the other day about this debate I had a few months back now with some an English guy who I think was just plain racist. And I made this image to just display to him the futility of races. Here we go. This is like a classroom assignment for everyone to do. Pick pick the person in the image who's white. Choose someone in that image who is white. Aviate says number three. Yeah, Brock, you were there for that debate. Yeah, let's as Radai said, none of those people are like white if you like abide by like U.S. racial rules of like one drop, you know. Three three. No, that guy's father is black. That's the guy who plays Leonard Snark in goddamn Flash, Captain Cold, or whatever the villain's name is. Can't remember his name. He's also in Samuel L. Jackson's part. CRT understands that race is a social construct that we understand at an individual level. It's not that race is necessarily not. I mean, I personally I do think that racism is nonsense. I'm for racial abolition, but CRT understands that race is a social construct that should be non-existent, but it does exist. Is transracialism valid? I don't know enough about it, honestly. I heard I there's so I have a video I could send you that has a much better argument than I could make against transracialism, probably. Hi, Princess. So sorry, we did answer that question at the beginning of the topic, at the beginning of the discussion. This, however, this is being recorded, so if you'd like to rewatch it afterwards, you may. And then if you have any questions after, if and once this is wrapped up, if you want to ask me questions afterwards, you can just ping me in one of the chats. This is covered in yesterday's lecture. All right, thanks, Princess. Soldier is racist. Yeah, bet you didn't see that coming. Is race? Does race exist on a social level? Yes. In like scientific, objective, like reality, like no. It's just people have different skin colors because their ancestors were from places of different. Avia, you just got fucking owned. Banning To Kill a Mockingbird is going a bit far though, isn't it? That's not CRT though, and To Kill a Mockingbird sucks. No, To Kill a Mockingbird is awful. No, it is literally white savior bullshit. There's literally a fucking point in the book where the guy stands up after the court case happens and all the black people in the fucking audience bow down to him and take their hats off. Fuck off. It is an awful book. The movie is pretty fucking bad as well. I'm not blaming the book for the time it was published. The time it. Stand up, your father's pet. Huh? Uh, How does CRT know that something is definitely not racist? Because it doesn't. It's something that won't have a negative impact on someone who's a person of color, or specifically in the context of what CRT focuses on African Americans. Here's a good question from Princess actually. If you have 1% black blood, are you black though? And here's the thing. It depends on who you ask, and it depends on how you look, and it depends on who you're talking to in regard to that. Like, because I mean, fuck me. Like that's an actual thing. Like the what like because the biggest the thing in like sort of rule of thumb in the United States for fucking ever for the longest goddamn time was the one drop rule. You got one drop of black blood, you're black. Well, yeah, David, that's the thing, right? Like, why do mixed race people identify as black rather than white? Like, first of all, I'm a mixed race person. Like, so that image, the image I posted earlier of like the who is white, who's black, those five pictures. Here's what I noticed: none of you said the last two guys. That's actually my father. But I'm a mixed race person. I do not identify as black. Personally, I would never identify as black. I just say I'm mixed. I hate specifying. When people do ask me to specify, I say I'm Afro Caribbean British. How do you look like? Show us your pic. I look pretty much like my pit crew profile picture actually. Foot soldier. I'm from the Cayman Islands, which is a British territory, and my mother's from Birmingham. My mother's a fucking Brummie. Your accent is completely American. Well, I'm not American. I just Coco, did you just say I sound like Ayn Rand? You take that back right now. Okay, I was about to say I was about to get upset. I was about to fucking nuke the world. Anyway, enough with shit posting. Christ, we got a lot of people in here. Wasn't expecting to get this much people. Might just try and push us up to at least like 3 o'clock. So that's like another 22 minutes. Is white adoption of black children racism? No. It CRT is not about doing a job. PCH. It's just an analytical lens. And while answer that question already, yeah, as Brock said, as in yesterday's lecture. Yeah, well, this whole thing's being recorded. The theory of critical race theory is nonsense. The methodology is often scientific. What do you got to say? Not your opinion. Then I can't change that. No, it's not cult. That's not what cultural appropriation is. Is it cultural appropriation if I become if I become a rapper? No. Just please, I ask you, be actually good at it and retire when you reach your limit. Because I mean, I'm still going on, and I don't know why. Oh my god, Arco! Arco, no! Uh, Brock, yeah. Fuck you. Oh, okay, you fucking got me there, you cunt. Fuck you. Fucking sake. Uh, Brock, yes. So what you're saying is that all the mainstream race stuff is bullshit and dumb. Yeah, a lot of the discussion that you see in particularly American media is fucking just stupid. Kim K once rocked dreads one time and got labeled cultural appropriation. There was a who okay princess who there was fucking Adele. Adele didn't she rock dreads like not too long ago? Like she was in Jamaica and she had like a Jamaican one piece suit on and she's rocking dreads. Was that her? Yeah. Uh Here's the thing. I don't think that was cultural appropriation. I just think it was cringe because she looked terrible. Yeah, sorry, Adele. Dreads aren't your look. Now, okay, so what? If okay, so you wanna if you wanna hair looks like dreads. Yeah, because dreads can. Oh, rat eye, stop! No, ew. No, he's not cultural appropriating. I just think he looks fucking awful. Um. Oh, what was it? Yeah, Arco. Yeah, there's some yeah, because dreads can occur naturally. It's also why it's why it's popular amongst Afro Caribbean people. Yeah, cultural appropriation really isn't relevant to CRT, but I mean, I don't mind talking about this shit. This really should have been just a discussion on race relations in general as well as CRT, but it's fine. Um, okay, so actually, if you guys want a good example of is there anything wrong with white chicks? Many things wrong with white chicks. Many things. Well, I already answered that. Unfortunately, Brock. She asked that earlier. I don't know enough about it. I don't want to fucking talk about it. Um, wait, hold on. So, like, hold on. Let me roll back a bit. So, um, if you want an example of cultural appropriation with dreads, if I saw some weird fucking is cultural appropriation only bad if it's done in a mocking way? Yeah, I'd say sometimes, yeah. Like, if you're using a fucking Indian, like American Indian headdress as a costume, I think that's just kind of disrespectful. I say that as someone who has a decently close friend who is First Nations, uh, which is the Canadian term for American Indian or Native American. Uh, I they pretend to be white. I don't know many African American people who pretend to be white. Is PZH in like I've checked numerous times. I swear to God, I don't see him in here. Oh wait, yeah, oh yes, he is. Anyway, I keep trying to say something. So if you want to, guys, if you want an example of like cultural appropriation, like involving dreads, uh, like some fucking idiot white kid who like puts on Rasta colors and then dreadlocks and then tries to speak like really shitty patois. That's cultural appropriation, and it's just offensive. I say that as someone who's West Indian. I'd fucking I'd slap that person. Because whatever want to give you one right, just fuck lick. You know what I mean? Why don't we focus on on dismantling it instead of using it to divide people into groups? That's partly what critical race theory is about. I think most critical race theorists are also race abolitionists, like myself. I'd say. I I'll tell you this right now. Most of the large scale civil rights leaders of the past, from yeah, fucking Walt. Yeah, most of the civil rights leaders of the past. I'm having like sensory overload watching the chat just fly by. Yeah, most of the big civil rights leaders of the past, from Malcolm X, Dr. King, Fred Hampton, Angela Davis, all of these people, Huey Newton and Bobby Seale, uh, Stokely Carmichael, all these guys. I promise you, they're race abolitionists as well. And what is Wagwan? What? Okay, so first of all, it's it's not Wagwam Mandem. It's Wagwan, which is patois for what's going on. Other words, it's just hi. And Mandem is a way of saying, and Mandem is Mandem. Other words, it's like if I said Mandem over there. Well, it's not grammar because patois is a dialect as well as a language in and of itself. It's patois because everyone in London speaks like this. Patois has affected, especially in London. Um, no, patois has is pervasive in English culture because the amount of people that have moved from the Caribbean to the UK, especially into the more especially into more urban inner city areas like London. So, and it's become a wider pervasive culture. That's a, that's why you have a lot of that's why you have a lot of English people that talk like that because it's become pervasive in English society. Oh yeah, so here I can translate. I can anytime Foot Soldier says some bullshit, I can just translate. Say what you say is not jibber jabber English. Like I said, Jamaican patois is its own dialect as well and language. Uh, I'll post a video on, let's see, Jamaican patois. Yeah, Jamaican patois is not English. Let me just make that clear. There's Jamaican English. There's Jamaican patois. If you guys want to learn more about it, I really recommend watching this video because it's actually pretty good. And it's not pigeon. It's not jibber jabber. It's a language in and of itself that is uh actually quite derivative of previous African languages, which I didn't know. Why is that guy white though? Because he's probably a linguist, princess. No, he's American, Elixir. Yeah, no, the London slang is different. No, yeah, it is. Um, Foot Soldier, like there's a video. You know the channel React, the Fine Brothers. I think that's what the names are. Well, like they have a video of Shaggy, the musician, reacting to Jamaican accents in different uh movies and stuff, and TV shows and all that. And he's just like, yeah, none of these accents are accurate because for one thing, they're all being played by Americans, and it's all Americans trying to. Shaggy is black. Man is Jamaican. He might be mixed for all I know, but man's black. As far as he cares to identify himself. But what's that? Capleton and Bounty Killer. Oh yeah, I listen to Bounty. I come to kill ya, boy. Yeah, man. Oh, 100%. If you've ever listened to fuck, what's the song? Bulletproof. I think it's Bulletproof Skin. No, Bulletproof Skin by Bounty Killer. Like this song, like I'm saying this as someone who is gay, but you know what? Fuck it. I'll blast this shit. As for Capleton, I love Capleton because he made him and Sizzla made one of my favorite songs I listen to currently. Rockstone with Stephen Marley. Rockstone was my pillow, couldn't find place for sleep. But them empty of a fine food for it. Every day we terrorize by soldier police. When the ding them a drum and the ding them a beat. When them a play cowboy and Indian and chief. From the first straight up to the seventh straight. One thing in our mind we have to trample the base. And there it in their life and inheritance to make. What do you feel as a gay guy listening to overtly racist dancehall? Do you mean overtly homophobic? Overtly homophobic dancehall. I mean, yeah, yeah, Princess, I'm pansexual. So that's why I got the pan flag in my profile there. Um, no, you're fine, Princess. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's homophobic. It's unfortunately it's just that's Caribbean culture, it's Jamaican culture especially. It's Jamaican culture is so fucking aggressive against uh it's so aggressively homophobic. I actually made a video as a class project on homophobia in the Caribbean. So I mean, I can link that. But it's nothing that I think I can really help. I mean, my keep in mind. So I should say I'm not from Jamaica. I'm from the Cayman Islands, which is 300 miles west of Jamaica. We have a different dialect to Jamaica, different history, all that. Even though we were actually a dependency of them at one point, rather than just a strict territory of the UK. But I mean, we just legalized gay marriage. I think 2019, and it was a fucking. I tell you right now, it was a fucking fight. And it still is a fight for a lot of people. Yeah, one of the members of the legislative assembly in Cayman uh said he specifically threatened anyone that tried to talk to him about gay marriage was shooting them with a shotgun. Said, I'm my bestie. Come bring this foolishness around me. I think Brock's question will be the last question we answer for this, and then recording can stop. We could just all just shit post afterwards if you want. Uh, how does intersectionality handle things like homophobia and minority cultures? I mean, kind of like anything else, really. Uh, Because we like what we see in like the USA, for example, we recognize that the black community can be particularly homophobic. We can see that uh and transphobic. Is some of the social views of African Americans are. Yeah, for instance, I did go off topic, but I mean it's fine. I don't mind. I don't mind answering like general race relations questions. Uh, I mean, yeah, it's part of it's that intersectionality is effect is accepting that these sort of happenstances exist. But I actually there was a fantastic article that I all right, thanks for joining us, Foot Soldier. A fantastic article I read back when my country was trying to legalize gay marriage, and it was about the fact that all right, it was about it was the fact that these laws against prohibiting gay marriage from coming in were exports of England. It was a colonialist. It was a colonialist export. What about Muslim countries? Actually, surprisingly, for a lot of them, it might be the same deal because a lot of those were came under British rule at some point or another. Because older Muslim societies, like kind of like the Greeks and the Romans, were like much more permissive of that shit. But like that like so those ideas came about after uh like either Christian takeover or specifically like British or other European takeover, and especially with like uh conservative Islamic elements like what happened in Iran. Not white people's fault. I think it's Christianity's fault. What about Islam? I mean, I think Christian I think I think like the very radical elements of Christianity uh ended up affecting Islam in a negative way. Essentially, is what my point is, Brock. Islam Islam at the time of its of its founding was compared to Judaism or compared to like Jewish societies and especially compared to Christian societies was incredibly like progressive for its time, I guess, in terms of what rights it granted to minority groups in in Islamic societies, what rights it granted to even women or the average person. But how it's evolved is unfortunate. I do have some real admiration for the early Islamic history. Yeah, hey, they granted rights to people who worshipped in other religions. People of the book. That was like unheard of. Wait, hold on. Didn't Brock ask me a question? Uh, oh wait, no, no, wait. It was Princess asked me a question. Yeah, let's talk about my sexuality. How did I become pansexual? Uh, I became bi, and then I just started identifying more as pansexual. Pretty simple. Just like slide progression there. What's the difference between being bi and pansexual? Depends on who you ask, because for some people, being bi and pansexual is just it's just a preference of label. Yeah, again, it's not no difference. It just depends on who you ask. Because for a lot of people who are bisexual, they say bisexual, but they mean like dictionary defined. What they mean is dictionary defined pansexual. Uh, yeah, but well, I'm telling you this because in case you run into other people, because essentially, I mean, because even I will say sometimes. Well, here's the thing. Sometimes I will say I'm bi because guess what? It's easier to explain bisexual than it is to explain pansexual. So it really depends on social circumstances. So what? So that so what you end up having is that will say people won't say sometimes people won't say they're bi or pan. Sometimes they'll say I'm bi pan or bi pan. No, it's specifically people, princess, not just like anything. We just don't care about what the gender of the person is or what their identified gender is.